Hello S2 and welcome to your third lesson in S2 Modern Studies on crime. Now today's lesson we're going to look at how are people punished for crimes. So you could take this heading in your jotter, which is how are people punished for crimes. Now on the board here you'll actually see a picture which is from England, but this is from the late 17th century when the death penalty was still used in England. This is an artist's impression of two people being hung. Now a long time ago in Britain, hanging was a common method of punishing people for a crime, and it was actually a public spectacle where people would go and watch. Nowadays, obviously, in Britain we have removed the death penalty. There are still some countries in the world, most notably the USA, that does keep the death penalty, but we no longer have the death penalty in Britain. So today we're going to focus on how are people punished for crimes. So our three main aims for today are learning objectives. Firstly, to identify the different types of punishments and apply these to examples of crimes, to describe the reasons for punishment, and to evaluate the laws on criminal responsibility. So at what age in Scotland do people have criminal responsibility? Now, punishments for crimes in Scotland. What sort of punishments can people receive if they commit crimes in Scotland? Well, some of the punishments that they can receive include the following. So you can be fined if you commit a crime in Scotland, so you could be fined money. You can be fined and need to pay compensation to the victim, for example. So if you vandalise, say, someone's shop and cause damage, you might need to pay money, which would then be given to the person who owned the shop as compensation. You might need to serve community service, so a certain amount of hours doing work in your community. So that could include, for example, cleaning streets, painting local park fences, for example. So community service can also be given. Curfews, so you can be given a curfew that you're not allowed to leave a certain area, or you need to be in your house by a certain time. You can be given an ASBO, which stands for Antisocial Behaviour Order, so you can again be banned from going to certain areas or certain places. You can be given or be put on rehabilitation courses, where you need to go and attend courses to maybe learn from your mistakes and what you've done. You can also be put in prison as a common method of punishment for crimes in Scotland, and your time in prison can vary depending on the severity of your crime. If it's a driving offence, then you can be given a driving ban for a certain amount of time, or you can be given points on your licence, on your driving licence as well, depending if it's a driving offence as well. So that's just some of the types of punishments for crimes in Scotland. Now, what types of crime are there? Now, on the next slide, you're going to see a table. Now, what you need to do is you need to complete the first column with yes or no to show if the incident is a crime or not. Then your stretch and challenge is, could any of these crimes be described as victimless? So what we mean by that, is there no victim in the crime? Now for some of the crimes you might think that, well, at times it might be victimless and at other times it might not be victimless, it might depend. So here is your table here. So what I'd like you to do is to pause the video at this point, to draw this table into your jotter and to try and fill it in. So you have the heading, what types of crime and punishments are there? So down the left hand side you have different types of, or what could be described as crimes. So you've got shoplifting, breaking into a car, picking a fight, drink driving, driving under the influence of drugs, solvent abuse. Solvents are drugs ultimately. Urinating against the wall, shouting racist abuse. So the first column there, you then need to say, is this a crime? So you would write yes or no. The next column, is this a victimless crime? So if you think about shoplifting, is it a victimless crime? Is there a victim involved? Now, as I mentioned, for some of these, it might be the case that yes, there is a, or no, there is not a victim. And then the last column there, what kind of punishment should be given? Now that's up to you what kind of punishment you think should be given. If you use the slide 2 slides ago where I discussed some of the punishments can be given, like fines, prison, community service, etc., you can decide maybe what kind of punishment you would like to put in that column there. So if you pause the video at this point, draw the table and then try and fill it out. Now, on this slide here, we have some of your table filled out. So, is this a crime? Now, for all the points that you had in your table, you should have said, yes, they are, or they all can be crimes. Now, is this a victimless crime? Now, in the table here, you've got shoplifting. It says yes, stroke, no. So, at times, yes, this can be a victimless crime, because it might be the case that you go into a shop and you steal something and you don't harm anyone in the process. But at times it could be a victimless crime. It might not be a victimless crime because you might go into the shop and say attack the shopkeeper, then steal something, or you might take something that directly belongs to obviously the shop owner, which could be described as there being a victim potentially. Breaking into a car, again, that says yes stroke no, because ultimately if you break into a car, the car's empty, then you could argue, well, yes, it's a victimless crime, there's no victim there involved. But if you break into a car and there's someone there in the car already, then obviously that is a victim involved there. Picking a fight, is that a victimless crime? Well, no, because obviously you'd be fighting with someone directly, so there would be a victim involved. Drink driving, again, that's got yes stroke no, so you could argue there that drink driving, yes, it could be victimless because it might just be you involved, but if you end up crashing into someone or damage someone's property, for example, then that might arguably have a victim involved there. Driving under the influence of drugs, very similar to drink driving. Yes, it can be victimless because it might just be, again, you that's involved. Again, it could be no if you end up crashing into someone else and harming them. Solvent abuse, is this a victimless crime? You could say yes again, because it would just be you committing that solvent abuse. Urinating against the wall, yes, you could argue that's victimless as well, because you're not directly harming the victim. And then shirking racist abuse, well, you could argue no for that, because there would be a victim that you are turning that racist abuse towards. Now, the last column, what kind of punishment should be given? Now, the shoplifting one, it says there fine/community service. It's up to you which punishment you have put in that column there, what you feel would be appropriate. Obviously, it will vary depending on maybe how much has been stolen, the severity of it, but you decide obviously in the last column what kind of punishment you think should be given for the different types of crimes. Now, what type of punishments are there? Now, in the table below, there's different types of punishment. So we've looked at the way that people can be punished, but the different types of punishments are below. Now, it says here, complete the sentence below showing which types of punishments you would use. So, punishment, what we have here, first one is retribution. So, in more extreme cases, that might be the death penalty, for example. And the aim there is to make the offender suffer and pay for what they have done. So, if you wanted retribution for the person that has committed the crime. Deterrence, so to deter someone, so that might be fines or say curfews to stop people being in a certain area at a certain time, and the main aim of that would be to discourage the offender and others from committing further crimes. So if you, for example, entered a certain area, you could be fined, so it's trying to deter people from committing that crime. Another type of punishment would be reform, so helping the offender, so punishment should be aimed at changing the character of the criminal so that they can keep the law in the future to help them. Or protection in terms of punishment, so the offender might be put in prison, so that is ultimately saying that we as society must be protected from violent and persistent offenders, so to protect us, that type of punishment would be to put the offender in prison. So we've got here the most common punishment I would use would be, so you decide which most common one you would use, so if it's retribution, deterrence, reform or protection, and then try and give a reason for your answer. So this is because, again, this is up to you, it's your own opinion on what you think would be the best type of punishment to use. Okay, so our learning objectives. Our first aim is to identify different types of punishments and apply these to examples. So we have now done that there in the table. You've looked at the different types of punishments that can be used, and you've applied those directly to examples of different crimes, and you've decided which type of punishment you think should be used. Our next aim is we're going to look to describe the reasons for punishment and to evaluate the laws on criminal responsibility. So we have a case study here. This man is called Daniel Martin. Now, Daniel Martin is an 81-year-old man. A woman broke into his home and beat him up really badly. He was in hospital for 3 days. Now, we've got the question here. Should the defendant be punished? Why and how? Now, if we think about why would the following people may want punishment, so reasons for punishment. We have a police officer. So a police officer that's maybe involved in tackling this crime, they might want punishment so they are able to say, well, this has consequences. If you're doing this, we're putting this time in to investigate this to help Daniel Martin, so we want some form of punishment. Neighbours of Daniel, why might they want punishment? You could argue that they might feel a bit threatened or feel that they could be in danger that it might happen to them as well, so they would want some sort of punishment maybe to deter other people from doing it. The victim himself, Daniel Martin, why might he want punishment? So if you put yourself in his shoes, or if you had any elderly relatives that might have happened to if it was in Daniel Martin's case, how would you feel? Would you want some form of punishment for the offender? Probation officers, so why would probation officers who would maybe be involved in this case as well, dealing with the offender, why would they maybe want some form of punishment to take place? A community member in the local community, why would they maybe want punishment? So again, you could think about the fact that they may want to set an example that this sort of behaviour is not acceptable, you cannot just go around doing this, so they may want some form of punishment there. Or a granddaughter or grandson of Daniel, why would they maybe want punishment as well? Again, if you think about if you were put yourself in the granddaughter or grandson's shoes of Daniel, how would you feel about what had happened to him? So Ultimately, that's given the perspective of different people involved in this case, why they might want some form of punishment to take place towards the perpetrator. So there's different emotions and feelings from different people who are maybe involved in the case in terms of why they might want punishment. Okay, so our second aim today was to describe the reasons for punishment. So you have to think about different people that are involved in the cases. So even when there's a victim, maybe you have to think about the wider consequences of that. So the victim's family, police officers that are involved in the case, the community itself, why they would all want punishment for the offender. Now, our last aim today is to evaluate the laws on criminal responsibility. So ultimately, at what age are you responsible for a crime? Now, the age of criminal responsibility. Just recently in Scotland in 2019, Scotland changed the age of criminal responsibility to 8 years old. So from the age of 8, you can be criminally responsible for committing a crime. And decided that a child can be prosecuted from the age of 12. Now, you have to think about, do you agree with this? Do you think that it's right from the age of 8 you can be held responsible for a crime? Do you agree with the fact that from the age of 12 that you can be prosecuted for a crime? Now, something to think about here, what if a child under the age of 12 commits a crime, a very serious crime? Let's say a child at the age of 11 commits a crime. They cannot be prosecuted, but they can have criminal responsibility on their record, so they need to accept criminal responsibility for what they've done, but they can't be prosecuted if they're under the age of 12. So think about your views on that and if you agree with that. Now, the main task here, what you're looking to do, we have here, what is the right age to hold a child responsible for their criminal actions? So your task, what you're looking to do, is to carry out some independent research here about this issue and to write a paragraph with your opinion. So the current age in Scotland for people to be prosecuted is 12. Now, should this be lowered? Should it be younger? You can give a reason why. Or should it be increased? So do you think the age should actually be higher before you can be criminally prosecuted, and give a reason for your answer. Try if you can when you're doing your research, if you can find any high profile cases as examples to maybe support your arguments of it being lowered or it being increased. Okay, so our last aim today was just to evaluate the laws on criminal responsibility. So we've looked at that. Now, the work you're looking to upload in Teams via the assignment tab. Again, you can take a picture of your jotter, or if you've done this on a Word document, then you can upload this. So what you're looking to upload, firstly, is your table on what types of crimes there are and punishments that there are available. So your completed table. Also, what type of punishment you would use. And then the last part that you need to upload via Teams is a paragraph with your opinion on what is the right age to hold a child responsible for their criminal actions and ultimately for them to be prosecuted. Again, if you have any questions about anything that we have discussed in this lesson, then please just ask your teacher via Teams. Thank you.